the party. And we're going to be unpacking this very, very quickly because I know he has to run. Mr. Mashaba, always a pleasure having you on Salam Media. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, and good morning to the listeners, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to discuss this very, very important issue. And it's interesting listening to your remarks about human rights and human dignity. What we as ActionSA are fighting for is actually for South Africans to really be given the dignity, because the current the constitution as it is, it only gives the rights and the dignity to undocumented criminals who are in our country illegally. Because every time you go to court, you have the so-called human rights lawyers and NGOs formed specifically to really put legal South Africans under pressure, under squalor. Because I can give you an example, because sometimes, last night I was listening to one of the debates where people are talking about a human rights culture and Ubuntu. I cannot understand how anyone can talk about Ubuntu when you cannot demonstrate your Ubuntu to your own legal South Africans. When I was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, when you have hijacked people living in squalor, up to 80% of this being foreign nationals. And the so-called human rights lawyers and NGOs started to make sure that legal South Africans can suffer. Then the matter would go to court, up to the constitutional court, where the court says, no, the constitution says, and you can't blame the judges, because that's what the constitution says. The preamble of the constitution of South Africa says South Africa belongs to all who live in it. What nonsense is that? The South Africa belongs to South Africans. And now you go to the to the Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights obviously compels government to provide services to anyone who's in South Africa, whether they're here legally or not. So, and at the same time, as you are aware, we sit with 54% of our people living below the breadline, with the highest unemployment rate, sustainable unemployment rate in the world. But then we are being told that we must provide employment, we must provide medical services, we must provide other services to people who are in our country legally, some of them committing crime. In fact, they are criminals because they came into our country criminally, because a criminal is someone who breaks the law of a country.
How do you respond to someone that makes the case that, the constitution itself maybe doesn't necessarily need to change? Rather, there needs to be better enforcement for existing immigration and service delivery laws, because everything is in place when it comes to mitigating the influx of illegal foreigners in the country. Everything is in place when it comes to the deportation of those that have been found to be in the country illegally, but it's just not enforced. And what if, that amendment to the constitution itself, because we know South Africa is a big problem when it comes to the enforcement of the constitution and some of the laws that we have. So what if you amend the constitution? It's granted, it goes through, but still we suffer with the issue that we've always suffered with, which is implementation.
I can tell you that argument doesn't hold water at all, because what happens today, an illegal person come in, commit crime by obviously being in the country legally. And when you refuse to provide them services, then the courts will compel you to do so. So it is important to change the constitution, because it makes it easy, as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, when the people come in our country as illegals, they hijack a building. When I come across them, I must remove them. Then there's no court that is going to force me to provide them alternative accommodation, as the constitution currently says. Our clinics don't have to provide the medication. There are people crossing our borders, coming here, collect the medication from our clinics, go and open businesses sell the goods in their respective the countries. So all this is as a result of the constitution. So anyone who says otherwise, I can tell you, these are the people that wants to see our poor people, mainly black. They want to see them suffer because they are using this criminality to exploit the poor people. Because you know what that makes me personally very anyway. You know, from time to time we come across, or many times we come across cases where our people are denied the employment because our people have got rights as in our constitution. So now business people will bypass this because they know this criminals are protected by the constitution. They employ them. You know, on Sunday I was in the inner city engaging with the resident. I really cried inside. One woman at the age of 32 never had an opportunity to work as South African. And it says in the last years, every time when she goes out where there's an employment opportunity, she's asked if she's South African. They tell her no, they don't want South African. And you know why they chose this criminals who are here illegally? Because like them.
Mm, mm, mm. I want to come back to something which is very, very important. Your proposal for this amendment, you are proposing a review on sections of the Bill of Rights, which is section 26, 27, and 29, which ultimately relate to basic socio-economic rights. How does this proposal align with South Africa's commitments under international human rights law number 1, particularly the rights of children and access to emergency healthcare? Do doctors just turn away people on their deathbeds because they don't have a green ID barcoded book?
South Africa is not going to be a test ground of testing chaos because if international bodies wants to practice this, let them practice that in their countries. South Africa has got massive challenges of our own, as I've indicated, with the highest unemployment the rate, drug dealers, international drug dealers coming to destroy our people. I think South African constitution has South African first. We will watch what the international community wants to practice. Show me any country that has got the same constitution as South Africa. We're the only country in the world where I think our negotiators of this constitution strongly believe that the ANC, I think, I don't know, they were desperate to just have cling to power. They were promised because they were tending to billions by corruption and so forth. They were prepared to really accept some of these issues that are totally unacceptable. Never gave consideration what the so-called liberals wanted to achieve. What these liberals wanted to achieve, they wanted the ANC to have power, the political power, but to maintain the oppression of the black people. Because this is what this constitution is doing with the Bill of Rights. It's actually meant to keep on oppressing black people, knowing that they want labor, they will get labor from anywhere in the world. They'll bring criminals from all over, knowing very well that this constitution will protect them.
Do you believe there's a sufficient political appetite in Parliament to pass such constitutional amendments, particularly from coalition or opposition partners? We know how fragmented our Parliament is at this current moment.
Well, we are all going to engage. We are going to engage. We are engaging the voters. Like right now, talking to you, we are engaging South Africans to really know where this constitution that the President Cyril Ramaphosa went around the world claiming to be a model of what the constitution looks like. In the meantime, Cyril Ramaphosa went around the world to compromise and sell our country to international the crime syndicates. That's why Cyril Ramaphosa is very comfortable with the current arrangement because I don't know whether he knew or he was made to continue, because now you remember after the adoption of our constitution, President Ramaphosa went around briefing international parliaments about this constitution. And right now, he's been a president now, second term. He is hell bent on everything is going bad for South African, and the president doesn't give a damn about the plight of South Africans. So black South Africans are getting poorer by the day. They have been murdered, they have been raped. Our youth have been destroyed by drug dealers under Cyril Ramaphosa. It is happening. No other president ever really created this situation in South Africa. So I think Cyril Ramaphosa is the man responsible for selling this hoax of a constitution. Some aspect, not the entire constitution. This particular aspect of saying South Africa is for all who live in it, whether you're a criminal or not. We as ActionSA, we are unapologetic. We are clear about it. South Africa belongs to South Africans, and we put South Africa first, so that we can deal with the aspects of the Bill of Rights. That you come to South Africa, you must provide medical insurance before we give you the right to come into our country. You come and open a business in South Africa, we need a minimum of 5 million rand investment. You want to come, you can come and sell drugs in our country, we'll put you in jail forever under hard labor.
There's criticism and critics that argue this proposal, regardless of intention or not, could be used to justify xenophobic sentiments or attacks on the ground. What do you say to South Africans who fear that this policy might be weaponized? It could lead to a situation that we saw in 2008, those ugly pictures, this growing anti-immigrant sentiment in the country, and people essentially don't care whether you're documented or not. If they feel you have a funny accent, then ultimately you get blamed for all of the country's problems.
But we've got laws in this country to control and manage illegality, whether it's created by a South African or not. Because a South African normal resident, you don't have the right to go around and harass people on the basis of accent or so forth. This is the work of the police. I think the people you are talking about are those that wants to see more suffering of black people, because it looks like people enjoy wanting to see black people suffer. Because this constitution, this the preamble to say South Africa belongs to all, with a provision in our Bill of Rights that criminals are entitled to get the services in a country where we are unable to provide the services to our own people. I think this is honestly, as I say, it doesn't really carry any water. I think it's for me, it's actually more promotion of xenophobic because I can tell you, our South Africans, including myself, I'm really very angry about what we are seeing our people suffer like this. And in the meantime, we are providing services to criminals. You've heard the percentage of criminals in some of our prisons. Up to 40% of prisoners are 40% are undocumented people. Now you and I need to work hard to feed them. When we are unable to feed our own children, we are unable to provide health services. We are failing to provide schools to our people, and we expect us to work hard to provide services to people who came into our country illegally, who are criminals, and they come here and further commit criminals. And South African taxpayer must fund them. Honestly, I think we are not as fools as people might think we are.
Just before I let you go, if you can just indulge me, I'd like to digress. The biggest headline in the last 2 weeks was Helen Zille vying for a position that you once held, the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Your comments and thoughts on that?
Well, Helen Zille, like any South African, has got the right to go and contest anywhere in the country where there's a position. However, our concern as ActionSA is the fact that she carries what I call Verwoodian values. You know what thought about us as black people, that we are not capable of anything. That is why we needed to really be oppressed. If Helen Zille wants to come and contest Johannesburg, she's most welcome. But I think we want our people in the townships in Soweto, in all the black areas to know that let Helen Zille come here. The, Soweto will become like what Khayelitsha and Guguletu and Langa are. This is where Helen Zille failed. Helen Zille is the person that when I was the mayor, she fought with me. I left my business to work with the DA to remove the ANC. But when I became a mayor, Helen was the one vocal, mobilizing white councillors to be against my policy proposals with the provision of services to poor communities, where she went to an extent of approaching the ANC because I wasn't listening to her. I was a cheeky black. She wanted me to go and cut grass in Sandton. I said, no, I live in Sandton, yes, and I'm aware about the problems in Sandton. However, I've got people living in squalor where ANC has failed to provide them with toilets for 10, 12 years. I'm giving them the portable toilets. The DA under Helen Zille were totally against this. Why must I provide services to people who don't pay tax and don't vote for the ANC? Now you look at this the constitution we were referring to earlier. The constitution says when you are a mayor or you're a public rep in office, this is not a political party. You serve every resident. But unfortunately, that's not how Helen Zille feels. Helen Zille wants black votes, but she does not believe in providing services to black people. She does not believe in black leadership. But also one of the interesting aspects, I wonder, because Helen very toxic when it comes to coalition arrangements. She collapsed my government. She collapsed the Mpo Palace on 2 occasions when us as ActionSA gave the DA our support to prevent the ANC from governing because it was a black woman governor. Helen refused when PA was there to support us because she felt that not this black person is not going to do it. But on the other hand, 2 years later, she was the one responsible for bringing Celia Brink, who was brought with the mandate to look after the suburbs and forget about the black areas and go to Artisville, Mamelodi, Manskral. Since ADA took over in 2016, completely forgotten, written off public service until I got really tired of this and we decided to remove them. When look at today, 9 months later, after the city administration is now led by a black woman, 36 years old, Dr. Moya. Go and look at what's happening in Swani. So this is a question Helen Zille would not really believe that a black person is capable of governing. In fact, it's even a reflection on the DA itself. As far as I'm concerned, she's like another Mugabe. She believes she's the only person who can run this country. She does not even have confidence in the housing structures.
That's a parallel I never thought would have been drawn in my life. Robert Mugabe and Helen Zille. But anyway, Mr. Herman Mashaba, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, hope we chat soon in the not so distant future.
Thank you so much.
That was Action SA leader Herman Mashaba outlining his party's case for amending the constitution to limit undocumented foreign nationals' access to public services. It's a proposal that taps into growing frustration over service delivery and border management. But most importantly, it also raises deep questions about human rights, about constitutional values and social cohesion in post-apartheid South Africa. And it's quite interesting because the country is facing immense socio-economic pressure, the tension between protecting national resources and, on the other hand, upholding universal rights is becoming increasingly pronounced. Whether this proposal gains traction in Parliament or not is a conversation that challenges us to rethink what kind of society we want to build. You can engage with us. What do you believe South Africa should amend? its constitution to limit access to services like healthcare, housing, and education for undocumented migrants. Should they be turned away at hospitals? Should their children be turned away at no fee government schools? What are your thoughts on that? Or do you think this risks taking us down a very, very dangerous path of exclusion and division? There's been talks of us going the trajectory of 2008. Those horrific images of Africans essentially being burnt alive because they're not from this country. And it almost it's a hard one to draw a balance on, because on the other hand, there's a case to be made. As a Black South African myself, as someone that has family, in some of the most poorest parts of this country, you hear these stories, you see them, people saying, I can't get a job because they much rather prefer for a national. But on the other hand, South Africa has a responsibility, the same way other African countries had a responsibility towards us during the dark days of apartheid, to accommodate, to take care of us. It's Ubuntu. Eh? Isn't that what we preach more than anyone? So for me, it's maybe let's look at enforcement. Let's look at border control. Let's look at the enforcement of labor laws that ultimately lead to organizations and companies having 60, 70, 80% of their workforce being foreign nationals, while indigenous South Africans remain unemployed and living in destitute. And then they turn around and call them lazy. They don't want to work. They want to rely on social grants. But hey, you're putting these people in this situation. You can engage with us. Do you agree with ActionSA? Do you feel there should be an amendment to services to undocumented migrants? You can engage with us. Our studio line is 0116800355. On WhatsApp, send us a voice note on 0617660355. This is News and Views. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be with you after this.